This one? All right, yeah. Hey, everybody. Thank you. So, I've literally been chasing myself around the yard all morning. Can I take this off of here?
Sure.
That'd be great. So, I've been chasing myself around the yard all morning because 2 days ago, Sam sends me an email and says, hey, would you like to write an introduction for me and Maureen? And I'm like, Sam, you're an amazing friend. I love you. And writing an introduction for my good friend Sam and Maureen is a little bit like, I was thinking, like, what's this like? It's like asking my students at the U of A to just really quickly dash off a rhetorical analysis and a love letter to Lady Gaga or like Jay-Z, and no worries, like we're just going to post it on their Facebook wall. So I was like, sure, Sam, yeah, I'd love to do that. It's a big deal. But then again, I thought I've actually been writing this slightly analytical love note for about 13 years. In 1998, I was actually a good married Christian girl, and I was about to graduate with a BA in creative writing in Tennessee, and I was utterly floundering in my writing workshops. I was trying to connect with all these dead white guy poets, and it wasn't happening. And so somehow I got a copy of the Best American Poetry 1997, and in it there's a poem called Fiddleheads, and it's a poem by Maureen Seaton. And I want to read just a couple of lines from it, because these lines truly changed my life. The first time I saw hundreds of fiddlehead ferns boiling in an enormous pot, I realized, what an odd person I must be to hear the tiny cries from the mouths of cooking vegetables. Similarly, when you hurt me, I curled like a mouse behind my third eye. I realize what an odd thing it is to believe as I do in my third eye and the mouse that furrows behind it like a fern and whimpers like a fern, being boiled on a monster stove beside its brothers and sisters. Poor mouse. The things that make a person odd are odd themselves. Think of DNA. The way it resembles the rope Jack climbed to secure his future and that of his aging mom. Or the way a wave can drag a child under. That addiction to adrenaline, her siblings farther away and more powerless than she ever imagined. The pure and ecstatic irreversibility of undertow. It's odd to come back to life. As they say, she came back to life. I think I'll come back to life now. So the poem doesn't actually end there, but I figured I would sort of stop there just to tell you that I've read that poem literally hundreds of times in my life. Over and over, the long lines, the images that fold back on one another, the way they connect to something different and bring something else along each time. The first time I read it, it was as if I had been sitting at a table for a long time, and I was not fully aware of how hungry I actually was, because I'd sort of been picking at everything people were handing me, but I wasn't actually eating a meal. Finally, this was a meal that I could eat, and that I wanted to eat, and I was somehow fortunate enough to not only eat it, but to watch as it was being stretched into noodles from dough. It was beautiful. It changed my life. When I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2001, I carried this poem in my pocket. I memorized it. I recited it to strangers, no shit, random people I would run into. And people at bars in small towns. I recited it to my dog, to trees in Georgia and trees in Maine. I imagined a life in which I was both visible and invisible as I was hiking that trail. I imagined a life of facial hair, of walking to class without fear. I imagined being surrounded by people who had promised to see me without constantly revising all the things that they saw. In some ways, I feel like I invented Sam Ace on that long walk through those old woods, while I was also trying to invent TC. I didn't know his name then, but I knew I needed a man I could admire. A person who was neither afraid to die completely nor afraid to be reborn in his own design. I needed a faint coercion, a gentle poet's voice. I needed a person who would write a book called Stealth. I needed a voice who would say something like, "Little dumplings, I want to smuggle everyone I know into Tucson, scorched into life. It is said we come to the desert to burn through whatever holds us here." I needed to be held here, in this desert. I needed a mentor in navigating this space between and amongst the seen and unseen. At the very least, I imagined you hard enough that you came to me. Or maybe I came to you. Either way, I feel so lucky to hear your voice. You're not the same, but not different voice, to know your words. In Stealth, a book of poems by Maureen Seaton and Sam Ace, crab cakes and card games and the terror of intimacy are things that shimmer in their thingness, as shimmering, as concrete, as a sidewalk of cheese. Where the secret is, you say you, and she says you, and you mean the mirror of what you think. The dual purpose, bomblet, of this book is that it both explodes and purifies, it points and erases, it flashes and recedes. I'm so thankful that Stealth exists, that there is, in fact, a manufactured jungle, somewhere safe to hide, frond by frond. Please welcome Maureen Seaton and Sam Ace.